Alright, MrSotko here, and welcome back to another Starcraft 2 replay cast. And today it is a 1v1 on Lerelac Crest between our red Protoss player, Relmer, and over on the other side we have our blue Zerg player, TheCoolMan. TheCoolMan is a 1v1 master rank, and Relmer is currently a 1v1 Grandmaster. And it is cross spawns, so a very short distance between each other's base. We're going to go ahead and speed this on up. About the 2-minute mark, and that way they get all their buildings going, because the beginning of the game, pretty typical. And we could speed it on back down. It looks like we have a cybernetics core and gateway, so no forge fast expand for our Protoss player. That first hatchery going on down for the Zerg player. Moving out a couple drones now, already starting on that. And we have the first probe moving on out, and I'm not sure if he's seen that or not. And it seems like he moved right by it. Perhaps he's going to be putting proxy pylon, something like that, around there, because it seems like he could have spotted that. He definitely spots the creep now, so he definitely knows that his ally is, or his opponent rather, is a cross spawn. We also have the Overlord over there, the unambiguous Overlord. And Overlord floating over there too. Zerglings are already out, chasing down that probe. We'll get it sooner or later. And moving on out, a couple adepts now, and using that ability to get up there a little bit faster. And now take out both of those Zerglings. And now we have an adept rush here, moving on towards the Zerg base, moving out the Queens now to stop this. And we'll see how this works out for each other. Relmer moving in with the adepts. Gonna try and ghost them all the way up there, and makes it all the way to the drone line. See how many he can get here. And we'll go to the units lost tab, and so far losing 250 resources. That does include those Zerglings earlier as well, so losing a total of 6 units. So a total of 6 or 7 drones so far lost in that engagement there, so pretty worthwhile. And now even more adepts at the bottom. So far has not lost any, just kind of ghosted him right back. And now the TheCoolMan bringing up even more queens here. May actually lose a queen. And there he goes again, now trying to get back into the base to the drone line. And cancels that. Jukes out his opponent pretty bad there. And now going to go after some of these drones. Use those adepts to get back into the base again. We'll see if he decides to juke or if he's actually going to go into the base this time. And he does, and now he's at the drone line again. Drones coming around and to attack, and losing tons of drones here. So this is an excellent strategy against Zerg to lower their income. And that's what you definitely need to do. It's what you've had to do since the beginning of StarCraft 2, is really just wear down all those drones so that they don't expand too much on you. Leave a Zerg alone for too long, and you've almost certainly lost a game. Now, a Zergling rush just pouring into the Protoss base, but can't really get around all this. And overcharged that pylon. And now trying to move around the other side here, and the other side is totally undefended. So he might be able to get around here and possibly into the base here. He could actually stall it there with something, put it on hold position, but no, not going to do that. He's just going to get right through here. It's going right after the probes now. And we'll see how many probes are lost to this Zergling mass. And not too many there. So far, 1225 to 650. Now just blasting away at the Nexus, but the Mothership Core is working on some of these Zerglings. Each Zergling killed lowers the damage here. And now Photon overcharge on the pylon. I have an adept in on this as well. And will the Nexus go down? It's very low, so low, 50 health. And can he get the last one? No, he can't. The Nexus falls to that Zergling rush there. Left this side completely open, and this right here totally open. Could have just put a probe there on hold position, and then it would have stopped that for quite a while. And I'm gonna have to remake that Nexus back at base. So now the saturation over here is entirely oversaturated, almost by double. And the Zerg is free to do whatever he wants right now. We do have a couple Zealots that have been dropped in here with the Warp Prism. And we have a Dark Templar as well. and bails on that one. We have the Spore Crawler here that's going to spot everything going on. So many Zerglings and Queens there. That rush just simply isn't going to be happening. And there is no third expansion, second expansion rather, just yet. And I'll bring in another Dark Templar. And just puts it right back in the Warp Prism. And here come the Queens going after that Warp Prism and doing big damage to it. And they dropped off the 2 Zealots and the Dark Templar and moving on in, but that Spore Crawler is right there, so it's spotting these Dark Templars. But if they just move a little bit away from that, I don't see any other. And I'll goes back in the Warp Prism and just going to bail out of there. But so far the Zerg has lost a bit more than the Protoss, but you really need a little bit more losses than that to really equate to the Protoss, as the Zerg can typically lose quite a bit and be just fine. It's pretty much their nature is to just lose a lot anyway, so it doesn't really matter so much at this point in the game. Doing pretty good. Slowed him down a little bit with those drone kills in the beginning, but we'll see if it affects the late game or not. And he is pretty much free to do whatever he wants right now, as he has so much. The Zerglings and the Roaches, along with the Queens, and he went Dark Templars and Zealots to drop in, which is just not going to work now with these Spore Crawlers hanging around. But if he can get to this hatchery here, he could do a little bit of harassment, but it's just 1 Dark Templar, so we'll see what he can do there. And it doesn't look like he has any Overseers or anything. He's not going to be able to really spot this. And warped in a couple more Dark Templars down here. So now working at this hatchery, cancels the hatchery there. Gets a little bit of that money back. And probably be best just to expand right here and slap some Spore Crawlers down to spot all that. Zergling right in front of the base. That's a ambiguous scout there. Nobody sees him. Just chilling out. And now going after the robotics facility. Surely this Zergling will take everything down, and no, it doesn't. Adept blocking the entire army there. They seem to be really wanting to get past, but he's not really getting the point. Zergling's coming back to the Dark Templar now, trying to expand here, but not going to make it. May have to cancel this, and cancels it again, and just gets right back in the Warp Prism. So far, the Dark Templar play doing pretty good, but now has an Overseer out, 2 Overseers out. So that should help him out quite a bit against this Warp Prism play. And it looks like he's going to try and go around the backside again. And some creep tumors and expansion would be pretty nice to see all this. And so far expanded pretty decently with these Queens and those tumors moving out. But take some of those fresh tumors out. Wait, haven't gone underground just yet. And the Warp Prism's moving forward, and the Zerglings spot this, and they're just hanging out right under it. And here comes the Overseer, and they are definitely ready for this drop, so that isn't going to happen. So he's just going to have to go off the other way. But meanwhile, a big force has been developed by the Protoss here. We got an Immortal and some Stalkers, a pretty mixed force here with Sentries and Adepts. And now the Warp Prism here in warpage mode, and doesn't really warp anything in. And so far getting distracted here. The Zerg getting distracted a little bit by those Dark Templars, but now they see that there's a big force here, so now they're going after that. And now the Dark Templars are able to go after the hatchery once again, and we'll have to cancel this again. Not going to be able to get here in time by the looks of it. The Overseer a little bit slow, and we'll lose that. Cancels it though. And 4 Dark Templars going strong again, and just unable to expand here. Finally got up another hatchery at the second expansion here, and so he should be able to hold this. Could use a Spore Crawler there, a permanent Spore Crawler, and so the Overseer doesn't have to stay there the entire time. Could use that elsewhere. And now an even bigger force here, warping on in. Now that his money has kicked in, and his second expansion going strong now for the Protoss. Once the Protoss has 2 expansions, and it's really time to push pretty hard here. Changelings moving forward and spots those Changelings. Ain't afraid, no ghost. And now moving forward, going to be taking out all these creep tumors. All the work that those poor Queens did, being undone in an instant here by the Protoss. And we'll see if he's ready to go. We have the Warp Prism all the way back here. We have 2 Archons inside the Warp Prism, but he's going to lose them both. Oh, loses them both there to the Fungal Growth. Stops it in its tracks. And that would have been pretty devastating to unload 2 Archons here in the drone line. That would have been pretty nasty indeed. Now the hatchery cancels. Still down to just 2 expansions, and when you're at the same amount of expansions as Zerg, as your opponent, it is certainly not good. You need to be at least 1 expansion up. So now it's not looking all that good for the Zerg. It's gonna have to find a way to push this back and keep this expansion down here. And a push moving forward, some disruptors trying to get in. Oh, big disruptor, big disruptor there in the middle of all of those roaches there. That was big, and now the roach is pushing forward. Pretty nice force fields there, stopping the Zerg line, and the disruptor is just so good. And I'm, you know, really in no position to talk about balance, I suppose, but the disruptor seems a tiny bit overpowered, particularly to Zerg, with the roach piles, Zergling piles, etc. It just does so much damage. As you can see, it just took out an enormous chunk of those roaches, and it didn't even hit dead center. It was slightly off dead center, but it was a very, very good disruptor. And now going to be pushing forward here. And oh, this is a very good opportunity to take out some of these infestors. And the infestors, oh, totally defenseless. Going to lose a number of them. Units lost now soaring for the Zerg. And Disruptor takes out a few of them over there. And GG's out. And some pretty decent play with those Dark Templars stalling all of these expansions the entire game. That was definitely a really good play, stalling these expansions over and over and over, and that just made it so that he had to continuously make these hatcheries and just didn't have the monetary advantage that he needed as Zerg to be able to do this. And that disruptor hit, disruptor is just so good against Zerg. That disruptor hit somewhere over here, hit at least 8 roaches or maybe even 10 roaches. And it was just a little bit too much damage, a little bit too much for the Zerg to handle. But I hope you guys enjoyed this replay, and I will see you guys next time.